The streetlights flickered on as the sun set over Pine Grove Community Park. The sound of bouncing basketballs and friendly laughter filled the cool evening air. 4 teenage boys played their usual after-school game on the well-maintained court, just as they had done every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 2 years. Hanley, the tallest of the group, dribbled the ball with practiced ease. "Pass it here," called Key Park, waving his arms. The ball sailed through the air in a perfect arc. Key caught it and moved quickly toward the hoop, his worn basketball shoes squeaking against the clean court surface. Do Kim and Jin Cho played defense, their movements quick but careful. These boys weren't just friends. They were honor students at Pine Grove High School, where they had first met in freshman year. Now, as juniors, they were inseparable. 10 more minutes, then we should head home, Han said, checking his watch. His mother always wanted him home by 7:30 p.m. for family dinner. The others nodded in agreement, knowing their parents had similar rules. The screech of car tires cut through their peaceful game. A police cruiser pulled up sharply beside the court, its headlights blazing. Officer James Morrison stepped out, his hand resting on his belt. The boys stopped playing, the basketball bouncing away forgotten. "What do we have here?" Officer Morrison's voice was hard and unfriendly. "Parks closed after dark." Han stepped forward politely. "Sir, the park closes at 9 p.m. We have the posted rules right here." He pointed to the large sign near the court entrance. "We also have our recreation permits." Kai quietly pulled out his phone and started recording. His sister's son had always told him to document any interactions with authorities, just in case. The phone's screen glowed softly in the growing darkness. Officer Morrison's face twisted with displeasure. "You talking back to me, boy?" He stepped onto the court, his boots leaving marks on the clean surface. "Let me see some ID. All of you." The boys exchanged worried glances but remained calm. They had done nothing wrong. Du reached for his wallet, his hand steady despite his racing heart. "Sir, we come here twice a week to play. The community center knows us." "I don't care if the president knows you," Morrison snapped. "You people are always causing trouble. Probably gang activity." Jin's eyes widened at the accusation. "Sir, we're just high school students playing basketball. Here are our school IDs and recreation permits." His voice remained respectful, even as his hands trembled slightly. Morrison snatched the IDs, shining his flashlight on each one. "Lee, Park, Kim, Cho," he read out loud, his pronunciation deliberately mocking. "Why am I not surprised?" Kai's phone continued recording as Morrison called for backup, claiming he had found suspicious activity. The boys stood quietly, their dreams of finishing their game forgotten. They had all heard stories about staying calm during police encounters, but experiencing it was different. Han sent a quick text to his father, a retired judge. "At basketball court. Police Officer Morrison here." Key recording. He knew his father would understand the situation immediately. Minutes felt like hours as they waited. More police cars arrived, their lights painting the peaceful court in harsh reds and blues. Other officers seemed confused about why they had been called, seeing only 4 well-dressed teenagers with proper permits and IDs. "These boys giving you trouble, Morrison?" asked one of the newly arrived officers. "Found them lurking here after dark," Morrison replied, ignoring the clearly posted park hours. "Acting suspicious." Kai's phone captured everything. Morrison's tone, the confused looks of other officers, and most importantly, the dignified way his friends handled the situation. What started as a simple evening of basketball had turned into something much bigger. The boys didn't know it yet, but Key's recording would soon travel far beyond their small community. Their peaceful game was about to become a catalyst for change, all because they chose to respond to hate with dignity, to unfairness with calm, and to prejudice with strength. Standing under the harsh police lights, they remained united, their friendship stronger than the fear they felt. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, they stood together, Four friends caught in a moment that would change not only their lives but their entire community. Sun Park sat at her desk, reviewing social media analytics for her clients when her phone buzzed. A message from her younger brother, Key, appeared. Something happened at basketball. Need your help. Sending video. The video file arrived moments later. Sun's hands tightened around her phone as she watched the recording. Her brother and his friends, standing calmly under harsh police lights, while Officer Morrison's voice carried clear prejudice. Her marketing experience told her this was more than just a troubling incident. It was a story that needed to be shared. Did anyone get hurt? She texted Key immediately. No, we're all okay. Dad picked us up, Key replied. Sun took a deep breath and got to work. She knew timing and presentation were crucial. As a social media manager, she understood how to make content reach the right people. She edited the video slightly, adding simple captions to explain the context, the correct park hours, the boys' perfect permit status, and their academic achievements. I'm going to share this, she told Kai. People need to see what happened. She posted the video on multiple platforms, carefully tagging local community groups and news organizations. Her captions were clear and factual. Honor students with valid permits harassed by police officer while playing basketball. Officer Morrison, badge number 647, Pine Grove Police Department. Within an hour, the video had thousands of views. Comments flooded in. These are kids from my son's school. They're in the Honor Society. That's Hanley. His father was a judge. I know Officer Morrison. This isn't his first time. By morning, local news stations were calling. The video had spread far beyond their small community. Sun managed the growing attention carefully, making sure the focus stayed on the important issues. The abuse of power, racial prejudice, and the dignity shown by the teenagers. Han's father, the retired judge, received calls from his old colleagues. Du's mother started organizing a community meeting. Jin's grandfather, respected by everyone in town, spoke with other community elders about a unified response. Kay's phone kept buzzing with notifications. Their classmates shared the video, adding their own stories about the boy's character. Teachers spoke up about their academic achievements. The basketball coach posted about their volunteer work teaching younger kids at summer camps. Then came the call that changed everything. Mrs. Park, a prominent civil rights attorney, no relation to Key and Sun, reached out through her office. She had seen the video and wanted to meet with the families. Your brother's video is perfect evidence, Sun told Key over dinner. Clear, steady, and shows everything exactly as it happened. You did the right thing by recording. The police department released a short statement. We are aware of the video circulating on social media and are reviewing the incident. But the community wanted more than just a review. Local businesses near the basketball court put up signs, "All welcome here," and "Stop racial profiling." The high school principal spoke at a press conference, praising the boy's character and calling for accountability. Sun watched the view count climb higher each hour. More importantly, she saw the comments changing from simple anger to calls for action. People wanted real change, not just punishment for one officer. Kay and his friends gathered at Han's house to watch the news coverage. They saw their basketball court on TV, heard their names spoken by news anchors, and watched clips of their neighbors defending them. Did we do the right thing? Jin asked quietly. Han nodded. We stood up for what's right by staying calm and letting the truth speak for itself. Du looked at his phone, reading supportive messages from classmates. My mom says this is how change happens, not through violence or anger, but through truth and dignity. The video had done more than just expose one incident. It had awakened their community to a larger problem. As Sun monitored the growing response online, she knew this was just the beginning. The real work, changing the system, would take more than just viral videos. But for now, the truth was being seen and heard, one share at a time. The Pine Grove Police Department's conference room was filled with tension. Chief Thomas Roberts sat at the head of the table, watching the video for the 10th time. Officer Morrison's voice, filled with clear prejudice, echoed through the speakers. The chief stopped the video and looked at the internal affairs investigators. "Pull Morrison's complete record," Chief Roberts ordered. "Every complaint, every incident report, everything from his academy days until now." In another part of town, Mrs. Park sat with the four families in Han's living room. Papers covered the large dining table as she reviewed similar incidents from the past 3 years. "Officer Morrison has a pattern," Mrs. Park explained, pointing to the documents. 15 complaints of racial profiling in 36 months, all dismissed without proper investigation. Han's father nodded gravely. As a retired judge, he recognized the signs of systemic problems. "The system protected him each time," he said quietly. The investigation moved quickly. Morrison's dashboard camera from that evening revealed more than just the basketball court incident. It showed him passing by white teenagers playing in another park after sunset without stopping. This happened just 30 minutes before he confronted Han and his friends. At the police station, officers began coming forward. Morrison often made racist comments in the break room. One young officer reported, "We were afraid to speak up before." Du's mother organized community members to share their stories. People lined up at the community center, each with their own account of encounters with Morrison. An elderly Korean shop owner described being harassed during routine business inspections. A young black doctor told about being pulled over 3 times in 1 month without cause. "Document everything," Mrs. Park instructed her team. "Every story, every date, every witness." The internal affairs investigation revealed more troubling facts. Morrison had transferred from 3 different police departments in the past 10 years. Each time, complaints of racial profiling followed him, but the records were sealed. Han's father used his legal connections to unseal those records. The pattern became clear. Morrison would target minorities, transfer when complaints built up, and start again in a new department. Kay and his friends returned to school, where teachers and students supported them. Their basketball court became a symbol of resistance against injustice. News crews often drove by, filming the now famous location where everything started. "Your video changed everything," Mrs. Park told Key during a meeting. "It was the spark we needed to open this investigation." Chief Roberts faced mounting pressure. The mayor demanded answers. The State Police Oversight Board launched their own investigation. Morrison was placed on administrative leave, but for many in the community, this wasn't enough. The investigation revealed that other officers had reported Morrison's behavior before, but their concerns were ignored. The system that protected him was finally starting to crack. Jin's grandfather spoke at a community meeting, his voice firm despite his age. "This is not just about one officer," he said. "This is about making sure our children can play basketball without fear." The investigation expanded beyond Morrison. How many complaints were ignored? Why did the system fail to stop him? Who else knew about his behavior but stayed silent? Han's father reviewed the growing evidence with Mrs. Park. "This case could change how departments handle these situations," he said. "It could set a precedent." As the investigation continued, the 4 boys kept playing basketball, but now with community members watching over them. Their court had become more than just a place to play. It was a reminder that change was possible when people stood together against injustice. The truth was finally coming to light, one document at a time. The investigation wasn't just about Morrison anymore. It had become a chance to fix a broken system, to ensure that no other children would face discrimination while simply trying to play basketball. The morning sun rose over Pine Grove Community Park as hundreds of people gathered around the basketball court. Du's mother had organized a peaceful assembly to show support for the 4 boys and to call for police reform. People from all backgrounds stood together, holding signs with messages of unity and change. Jin's grandfather stepped up to the microphone set up near the court. His voice, though gentle, carried across the crowd with wisdom earned through years of community leadership. "Today, we stand not in anger, but in hope," he began. "This court, where our children should feel safe to play, has become a symbol of our need for change. The crowd listened respectfully as speakers from different communities shared their experiences. A local pastor spoke about building bridges between police and residents. A Hispanic business owner described similar encounters his children had faced. An African-American teacher talked about preparing her students for potential confrontations with law enforcement. News vans lined the street, their cameras capturing the growing movement. National networks had picked up the story, drawn by the powerful image of a community united against injustice. Reporters interviewed participants, impressed by their organized and peaceful approach. Han, Ki, Du, and Jin sat together on the same bench where they usually rested during their games. They watched as their small court became the center of a larger conversation about justice and equality. School friends joined them, bringing water and snacks for the participants. "I never thought our basketball game would lead to all this," Jin said quietly, looking at the diverse crowd. Han nodded. "My father says change happens when people come together like this." The police chief arrived at the gathering, not to control it but to listen. He stood at the edge of the crowd, taking notes as speakers described their experiences. Several of his officers joined him, including some who had recently spoken out against Morrison's behavior. Du's mother had organized the event carefully. Local restaurants provided free water and food. Medical students from the nearby university set up first aid stations. Everything was orderly and peaceful, showing the community's ability to unite with dignity and purpose. Ki's sister's son managed the media coverage, ensuring that reporters understood the full story. She shared not just the video of the incident, but also stories of the boys' contributions to their community, their volunteer work, academic achievements, and the basketball clinics they helped run for younger children. As the day continued, more people arrived. Teachers from Pine Grove High School came to support their students. The basketball coach brought the entire team. Even former residents who had moved away returned to stand with their community. Mrs. Park, the civil rights attorney, addressed the crowd in the afternoon. She explained how this case could help create new policies for police departments across the state. "What happened on this court," she said, "will help protect children everywhere." The assembly continued into the evening. As the sun set, people lit candles, creating a peaceful glow around the court. Unlike the harsh police lights from that night, these lights represented hope and unity. The four boys walked onto the court together. Han carried a basketball. The crowd fell silent as they began to play, just as they had done many times before. Their simple game became a powerful message. They would not let fear keep them from living their lives. The day ended with a community prayer for change, led by religious leaders from different faiths. As people began to leave, they took with them a new sense of purpose. This wasn't just about four boys anymore. It had become about building a better community for everyone. The basketball court, once just a place for after-school games, had transformed into a symbol of hope and unity. The community's response showed that when people stand together peacefully, their voices become too powerful to ignore. Mrs. Park's office buzzed with activity as her team prepared their case. Stacks of documents covered every surface, each telling a part of the story that needed to be told. The civil rights attorney had handled many cases before, but this one felt different. The evidence was strong, and the community support was overwhelming. Ki's video played on her computer screen as she took careful notes. The recording quality was perfect. Clear sound, steady camera work, and a complete view of the incident. "This is our strongest piece of evidence," she told her assistant. "It shows everything exactly as it happened." Han's father sat across from her desk, reviewing Officer Morrison's previous records. His experience as a judge helped him spot patterns that others might miss. "Look at these dates," he said, pointing to a document. Every time complaints started building up, he transferred to a new department. The pattern is clear. More people began coming forward with their own recordings of encounters with Morrison. A shop owner shared security camera footage of Morrison harassing customers. A college student had dashboard camera video of an aggressive traffic stop. Each piece of evidence made their case stronger. Du's mother organized the witnesses, helping them prepare their statements. Some were scared to speak up, but her gentle encouragement helped them find courage. "Your stories matter," she told each person. "Together, we can make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else." The police department's lawyers tried to settle the case quietly. They offered money and a simple apology. Mrs. Park called a meeting with all 4 families to discuss the offer. "We don't want just money," Jin's grandfather said firmly. "We want real change." The other families agreed. They weren't fighting for themselves anymore. They were fighting for their community and for every person who had faced similar treatment but couldn't speak up. The case moved to federal court, where it would have a broader impact. Mrs. Park argued that this wasn't just about one incident or one officer. It was about a system that allowed discrimination to continue unchecked. Key testified about the night of the basketball game, his voice steady as he described what happened. The video played in the courtroom, and Key explained why he started recording. "My sister always told me to document everything," he said. "I wanted to make sure people could see the truth." Han spoke about their regular basketball games, their good grades, and their involvement in community service. His calm testimony showed exactly what Morrison had chosen to ignore that night. They were just teenagers playing basketball. The evidence kept growing stronger. Police records showed that Morrison had targeted minorities far more often than white residents. His own body camera footage revealed a pattern of aggressive behavior toward people of color. Mrs. Park presented statistics showing how Morrison's actions fit into a larger pattern of discrimination. The judge listened carefully, taking detailed notes as expert witnesses explained how bias could affect policing. The case attracted national attention. Legal experts appeared on news shows to discuss its importance. Civil rights organizations filed supporting documents, explaining how this case could help change police practices across the country. In the courthouse hallway, the 4 boys stood together during a break in the proceedings. They looked different now, more confident, more determined. They understood that their simple basketball game had started something important. "No matter what happens," Du said to his friends, "we stood up for what's right." The legal battle wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about setting an example, about showing that the truth could prevail when people stood together. As Mrs. Park prepared her closing arguments, she knew that this case would help write new rules for how police departments handle bias and discrimination. Chief Roberts stood before the Pine Grove Police Department, facing rows of officers in the main conference room. The morning light streamed through the windows as he prepared to announce the biggest changes in the department's history. "Starting today, everything changes," he began, his voice firm and clear. "What happened at that basketball court showed us that we need to do better. Much better." The chief clicked through a presentation showing the new reforms. Every officer would complete new training programs on cultural awareness and community relations. Han's father, using his experience as a judge, had helped design these programs to address real situations officers might face. In the back of the room, Officer Morrison's empty desk served as a reminder of why these changes were necessary. The department had suspended him, and his disciplinary hearing was scheduled for the following week. Several officers who had witnessed his past behavior but stayed silent were also under review. Du's mother joined the newly formed Police Advisory Board, a group of community members who would work directly with the department. They would review complaints, suggest improvements, and help build trust between police and residents. "We need to know our community better," Chief Roberts explained to his officers. "These kids we almost arrested. They're honor students. They volunteer. They help younger children. We should have known them as members of our community, not as suspects." The department installed new cameras in all police cars, with strict rules about when they could be turned off. Officers would need to explain, in writing, any time their cameras weren't recording during an incident. New software would track all police stops and arrests to identify any patterns of bias. Key's video became part of the new training program. Officers watched it and discussed what should have been done differently. Many were shocked to see how quickly a simple basketball game had turned into a tense confrontation. "That could have been my kids," one officer said during training. "We need to think about that every time we approach someone." The reforms went beyond just new rules and training. The department started a community outreach program. Officers began attending local events, not to police them, but to get to know the people they served. They organized basketball games with local youth, creating positive interactions instead of confrontations. Jin's grandfather helped create a cultural advisory committee. They would teach officers about different communities in Pine Grove, their customs, and their concerns. The committee included leaders from various cultural backgrounds, ensuring that multiple perspectives were heard. The changes weren't easy. Some older officers resisted, claiming the new rules made their jobs harder. But Chief Roberts stood firm. If these changes seemed difficult, he told them, imagine how difficult it was for those boys to face discrimination from someone who was supposed to protect them. Other police departments began asking about Pine Grove's reforms. The changes that started with 4 boys playing basketball were spreading to other cities. Chief Roberts received calls from police chiefs across the state, wanting to learn from their experience. Han, Ki-do, and Jin visited the department to speak to new officers about their experience. They shared their story not with anger, but with hope that it would help prevent similar incidents in the future. We didn't want anyone to lose their job, Han told the officers. We wanted the system to change so everyone could feel safe in their own community. The reforms weren't perfect, but they were a strong start. The department began to transform from an organization that had protected problem officers into one that truly served and protected all members of the community. The basketball court incident had become a turning point, pushing the department toward real and lasting change. The Pine Grove City Hall's main chamber was filled to capacity on a bright Tuesday morning. Television cameras lined the back wall as Mayor Thompson approached the podium. This was a historic day for the city. The official announcement of the resolution to the basketball court incident and its resulting changes. The 4 boys sat in the front row with their families. They wore their school blazers, looking more grown up than they had that evening on the basketball court just months ago. Behind them, community members filled every seat, their presence showing support for this important moment. Today, we acknowledge past wrongs and commit to a better future, Mayor Thompson began. She held up a thick document, the official agreement between the city, the police department, and the families involved. Chief Roberts stepped forward to read the police department's formal apology. His words were clear and direct. We failed to protect members of our community. We allowed bias to affect our judgment. We are deeply sorry for the pain and fear we caused these young men and their families. The apology was just the beginning. The agreement included specific changes that would reshape law enforcement in Pine Grove. The new Community Oversight Board, with Dew's mother as a key member, would have real power to review police actions and recommend changes. Mrs. Park stood to explain the legal parts of the agreement. The city would create a special fund for police training and community programs. Every officer would complete new training courses designed by Han's father and other community leaders. The department would publish regular reports showing who they stopped and why, making their actions clear to everyone. This resolution isn't about punishment, Mrs. Park explained. It's about making real changes that will protect everyone in our community. Key's video recording had become a teaching tool. Police academies across the state would use it to show future officers how bias could affect their actions and how to prevent similar incidents. The department would also keep recordings of all police interactions, making sure there was always a clear record of what happened. Jin's grandfather spoke about healing and moving forward. This agreement shows that when we work together, we can turn painful moments into positive change, he said in his gentle but firm voice. The mayor signed the agreement as cameras flashed. Then, one by one, representatives from different groups added their signatures. The police chief, community leaders, and civil rights organizations. Each signature represented a commitment to maintaining these changes. Han, Ki-do, and Jin were asked to sign too. Their signatures meant something special. Young people taking part in making their community better. As they signed, their classmates in the audience cheered quietly. The resolution included funding for youth programs at the community center near the basketball court. New sports equipment, mentoring programs, and activities would help bring police officers and young people together in positive ways. This agreement does more than just fix one incident, Han's father explained to reporters. It creates new ways for our community to work together and prevent future problems. After the ceremony, the four boys returned to their basketball court. The same place that had seen tension and fear months ago now stood as a symbol of positive change. They played a quick game as photographers captured the moment, showing that their love for basketball remained strong despite everything that had happened. The resolution marked not an ending, but a new beginning for Pine Grove. The changes it brought would help build trust between the police and the community. The four boys who had faced discrimination had helped create a better system for everyone who would come after them. 1 year had passed since the incident at the basketball court. The morning sun shone brightly as people gathered for the first annual Pine Grove Unity Tournament. The court, now renovated with new backboards and fresh paint, buzzed with excitement. Han, Ki, Du, and Jin stood at center court, each wearing their college acceptance shirts. Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and Yale. Their academic achievements had earned them spots at top universities. But today wasn't about their future plans. It was about celebrating how far their community had come. "Welcome to our Unity Tournament," Han announced into the microphone. 1 year ago, this court was a place of fear. Today, it's a place where everyone can play and feel safe. Teams from all over the city had come to participate. Each team included both community members and police officers playing together. The new Pine Grove Police Academy cadets formed their own team, wearing shirts that said, "Protect and serve all." Chief Roberts watched from the sidelines as his officers played alongside teenagers they once might have viewed with suspicion. The changes in his department had become a model for other cities. In the past year, 5 other police departments had adopted Pine Grove's new training programs. Du's mother, now the chair of the Police Oversight Board, presented data showing the impact of their reforms. Police stops had become more fair. Complaints had dropped by 70%. Community trust had grown stronger. Her presentation board displayed these numbers clearly for all to see. Ki's sister's son had created a documentary about their story. It played on a screen near the court, showing how one incident had sparked real change. News channels across the country had picked up the story, spreading the lessons learned in Pine Grove to other communities. Jin's grandfather sat in his special chair by the court, surrounded by other community elders. They smiled as they watched young people from all backgrounds playing together. The fear and distrust that had once divided their community was being replaced by understanding and respect. "Look at what you started," Mrs. Park said to the 4 boys as she joined them. Her legal work on their case had led to new state laws about police training and accountability. She now taught at law schools, using Pine Grove's story to show future lawyers how to create positive change. The biggest surprise came during the lunch break. Han's younger sister Lisa stepped forward wearing a Pine Grove Police Academy uniform. She had decided to become part of the change from within the system. "I joined the academy because I want to be the kind of officer I needed to see that night," Lisa told the crowd. "Someone who protects and serves everyone equally." The basketball tournament continued throughout the day. Games were played, friendships were formed, and barriers continued to break down. Officers who had once patrolled these streets with suspicion now coached young players and shared laughs with community members. As the sun began to set, the 4 boys played one final game together before heading off to college. They played against a team of police cadets, but this time the only competition was on the scoreboard. The crowd cheered for both teams, showing how much things had changed. "Sometimes the best change starts with something small," Han said as they finished their game. Like 4 friends playing basketball. The Pine Grove basketball court had become more than just a place to play sports. It was a symbol of how a community could face its problems, work together for solutions, and build a better future for everyone. The 4 boys who had once faced discrimination, there had helped create lasting change that would benefit generations to come.